Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, chefs. We are so grateful to have so many people joining us from all over the world for our wonderful Seaweed Days. Welcome to this afternoon's session. My name is Linda Hunter, and I'm one of the members of the Seaweed Days team. We're very happy today to be able to welcome Christine Couvelier from the Culinary Concierge, along with her fabulous team of chefs from Sysco. Let me tell you a little bit about Christine, and then she'll introduce you to our wonderful chefs today. Christine is passionate about food. She's a culinary executive, an executive chef, and a global culinary trendologist. With over 35 years of experience, this world-class chef and founder of the Culinary Concierge assists clients in the creation of award-winning food products, services, and strategies that help them build their brands and keep them ahead of market trends. What's a culinary trendologist, you ask? Christine tours the globe to taste what is coming next, cooking with chefs, attending food shows, visiting green markets, and gourmet retailers. She develops her sought-after Trend Watch report, focusing on emerging, developing, and existing trends. I'm a connection between the culinary world and the consumer. My taste buds are extremely focused on all areas of the food business. As well, I am business and strategy focused while always monitoring consumer insights, says Christine. She's also the co-founder of Teach, Taste, and Learn, providing leadership training for chefs who are culinary teachers, as well as guidance for culinary schools who need to update their curriculum and methodologies to match to the industry needs. Please welcome Christine and our wonderful group of chefs today.
Thank you, Linda. I am thrilled today to be joined by BC's 3 culinary specialists, the creative chefs of Sysco. And I'd like each of you to be able to talk about your roles with Sysco and talk about your culinary journey and your culinary roots and how that has shaped what you do for Sysco. So let's begin with Daniele Mereu.
Hello, thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Cascadia. So yeah, we're part of a really good collaborative actually, because SyscoBC has 3 corporate culinary specialists that we work in each different sites. I am in Victoria, so I work at the Sysco Victoria operation company in the last 11 years. So I'm Italian from origin. I was born and raised in Piedmont, Turin, 2006 Winter Olympics. I'm sure sounds right. And, you know, it was a journey for me to come here in 93 and discover what actually the West Coast of Canada has to offer. So, you know, I grew up with the spaghetti lunch and dinner and Nutella sandwiches. And now I see my little daughter having, you know, taking sushi and, you know, nori snacks, crackers, and she's 8 years old. So, yeah. You know, we do conducting a lot of research and tastings and development in our laboratory and in our different company sites. And we care and help about our customers by bringing us to us and discover what their needs are and provide them solutions and innovations like seaweeds. And that's what we do.
Thank you, Chef Daniele. Welcome.
Thank you again.
I'm going to turn to Chef Patrick Fitzgerald. Tell us a little bit about your culinary journey and how it has molded what you do for Sysco today.
Yeah, thanks, Christine, and thanks for having us here. Thanks to Cascadia Seaweed, or Cascadia. So my background entirely stems from the Lower Mainland. Born and raised in Port Coquitlam, and I decided to go to culinary school. I dropped out of business school because I was bored, and I went to culinary school when I was 19. And I've never really looked back. Cooking's always been a passion. I started when I was 15 at White Spot and McDonald's actually just before that, which love it or hate it, they do have the world's best training out there and really sets you up for the fast-paced environment. I think you figure out quickly whether you enjoy that or not. And I did. So I've never really looked back. I've worked at, I did a long stint at Fairmont Hotels. I've jumped around to small mom and pop restaurants, some pubs, some cafes, golf course for a long time. And I've run a little bit of front of house too. So tying it all into Sysco, natural progression that I ended up at the company who's been my supplier for the last 15 years. And I love it. My job, day to day, as Danny mentioned, is just assisting our clients and our restaurants and prospect restaurants and how we can help them succeed ultimately. And I think the well-rounded experience I have with banquets and restaurants and buffets and front of house all ties into everything, and we can really offer that value to our customers. So
Fabulous. They're lucky to have you. Let's
you.
go to our third chef today, and it's Chef Brent Durec. Welcome, Brent.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for having us. It's super exciting to be here, part of Cascadia Seafood, and sitting here chatting with everybody. I guess telling my story. I don't know. I don't really have a great story. I was born and raised in the Lower Mainland. I actually started cooking a little bit later in my life. I cooked as a young guy, and then did a lot of different stuff in between. Went to culinary school, did VCC like a lot of other people down there, and I got some great chances to work with some great people in the Lower Mainland underneath some chefs that were part of Team Canada, part of Team BC at that time. So it was really nice. It was great to learn as a young chef then, and then kind of honed my skills a little bit more in a place called Bridges in Granville Island. Spent a couple of years there, and then got an opportunity to move to the Okanagan Valley, which, wow, what a change in pace that was, because I did it, I'm gonna say 22 years ago, and back then fine dining was baked potatoes and prime rib. So things were a little different, and you know what? I'm truly blessed because I got to watch this valley progress and evolve from that to what I would classify as pretty world class. We have obviously lots of wineries. We have so many amazing chefs here. It's hard to pick and choose who to even talk about, but I'd like to say I'm honored that, if you happen to watch Top Chef, well, 6 of them have been from this small little community. So it's a good thing to know. And you know what? Coming to Sysco, I've been here for 16 years. I've been everything from a buyer to a protein specialist to a salesperson, now back in the kitchen, which I love. And I think all of my roles in the past and all of my roles currently have made me a better chef, just for knowing the business a little bit better and understanding what customers' wants, needs, and understanding what Sysco and myself can do to help our customers succeed and get better at what they do. So that's kind of where we are. And I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to pass it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chef. Well, during Cascadia Seaweed Days Festival, it's 7 days of seaweed. We are sharing everything to do with seaweed and how innovative it is. So all Sysco chefs were shipped samples of Alaria and sugar kelp. And I'd like to ask each one of you what you thought when you opened it, what you were expecting, and what it was like when you got it. So Daniele, let's start with you.
Sure. Yes, thank you. Great question, because I was surprised of how fresh the smell was. Almost like somebody was, because I am an avid gardener, and I pick a lot of seaweed at the beaches around Victoria, because I put it straight down or on top of my beds for tomatoes, for example, and for other vegetables, because it gives a lot of nitrogens and lots of minerals and trace elements. So I use that constantly, right? More than what I can eat. And I know how a seaweed smells, right? Because we are surrounded, and it helps. I get great vegetables out of it because of the help. And when I opened it, it was fantastic. It was just like, oh my God, somebody just picked it and put it in a bag and drop it at my house. And the two differences, I said that the sugar one was so delicate in smelling, more like a flower. Very, very, very delicate sense and both were like super fresh, really. And note they were frozen, right? So when they came into blocks. So, and the other one, actually, as soon as I opened it, was just fresh, but remind me of a sunflower big plants in some way, somehow. And so, and I noticed already, okay, this has a little more stronger the flavor profiles, aromatic compound, and I know it's gonna be, and it wasn't, you know, and I thought it was even, you know, oh, this maybe it's gonna be tougher than the other one, but it's actually no, neither of the two were like really super thick and tough, actually. But yet again, I use the alaria in my in another composition that I'm gonna show it to you, and I'm gonna tell about it to you when it's time. But yeah, incredible.
Thank you. I agree with you. It is incredible when you first open the package.
Yeah.
Chef Patrick, what about you? What happened when you opened your sample boxes?
You know what, I'll tack on to Danny's that I was very impressed with how well the fresh smell, not a bad sea smell, just a very fresh, reminiscent of being at the beach, traveled being frozen in a block. So that was pretty cool. I'll be completely forthcoming that in my culinary travel, seaweed is not something that I've focused on. There's been times where I've utilized certain species or agar or some byproducts of it, but not as much in the fresh. So I was, excited to kind of see how it came and exactly what it was. And same thing, I will point out, because you made a comment the other day that my bags did not leak. So even when I thawed them out, there was zero leakage. So I was lucky in that sense. But I noticed that when I opened them, when I cooked them, the word I'll use is natural in a good sense, that much like getting frozen mussels that have clearly been processed or something, and you're not sure to what extent, when you get fresh mussels, even though there's a bit of work involved to clean them up, they're just that much better. And again, to Danny's point, very happy, I guess, but it was a cool outcome how well something that you've seen growing in the water and stuff is not tough to eat. It's super tender when you eat it, and again, we'll talk more in the recipes, but the kelp was very, very neutral and gentle, and the alaria a little more pronounced, but not in a bad way, in a very fresh, refreshing way. So
excellent. I wish we all could have been together and cooked together when you got the samples, but we'll do that next year at the festival.
Yeah, it definitely makes the kitchen smell like a beach in a good way. So
in a good way. Chef Brent, now tell us about your experience. What did you expect it to be like, and what was it like when you opened up your cooler?
It's funny because obviously I'm from the interior where we don't have an ocean very close to us like Danny and Patrick do. So to me, I'm very jealous of that, because it's all I have is beautiful Lake Okanagan and a lot of milfoil every once in a while. So not really something that I think we can eat. But again, it was nice. You opened it. I like the natural state of it. Like, we're coming from food service where everything has to be uniform, everything has to be perfect, things like that. And to open this and have such a natural product and a free form product, you get some big leaves, you get small leaves, bigger stem, smaller stem. It was fun to see how natural it was. I loved the idea that I could actually thaw that product and then turn around and only pull what I needed to. And I actually refroze some of it, because you can refreeze it and reuse it. So I do like that aspect. And you know what? Again, the taste of it, I enjoyed it. It had great texture, but it wasn't too heavy. And it had a great seafood flavor. It wasn't overpowering, but it had a little bit of delicateness to it, but yet you still knew you had seaweed. So it was good. Like, I enjoyed it.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. So all of our talented Sysco chefs have been experimenting in their kitchens to create dishes with both the alaria and the sugar kelp. And we're going to share some photos and some live pictures of what those dishes were. So Chef Daniele, let's start with you and tell us what you were inspired to create with your seaweed.
Well, that's okay. So I went to exactly the opposite of Chef James Clark last night. He did a great job, and it goes really well when you start into to use it the way you did. I did the opposite, but I did something that is very established in it, for example, in a Japanese culture for centuries, because they're master at using, for example, kombu to wrap or cure beef, for example. And exactly what I did. I say, well, I'm gonna make a beach burger. And I really did make it a real big beach burger by cooking the alaria into a solution of soy, sake, mirin, and so when I after the la blanche, I basically simmered the alaria for half an hour until I got that flavor profiles, and then I ground it at when it was cold. I ground it with the beef tenderloins and sirloin from the butcher block program that we do provide our customer through Sysco and Sysco Canada. And so it was, and then I left it overnight to get the umami flavors, because that's exactly what I wanted to have, the umami flavor going in. And I tell you, if I didn't tell you that there was seaweed in it, you would not detect it. You would not say, oh, there is seaweed in here. It is a notice. It's actually, and it goes so perfectly well that that was my first dish. So, and for the second dish, I went still again with the Japanese twist, but at this point, I choose again beef tenderloin tartare. So, basically, because seaweed has a lot of opportunity. We love the seaweed for a lot of things. It's low fat, it's high in vitamins, especially vitamin B12. It's high in mineral, it's very high in iodine, don't eat too much of it though, and it's very high in fiber. It's got lots of carbohydrates and lots of proteins. So it's fabulous. So why not use it, right? And even just 4 grams of this product will give you the whole day intake of vitamin B12. So which is great. So it's good for your thyroid hormones. It's so, and the Japanese know that because they eat 1.6 kilos of dry different kinds of seaweed per capita, right? And wine once in every 5th meal has seaweed in their culture. So it's about the exposure. So I thought about, because the extraction of seaweed is, we get alginate, we get lots of polysaccharides out, agar-agar, carrageenan. So we can fight, we can fight a lot of the diseases like obesity. We can fight diabetes, for example, cardiovascular diseases. And that's why, that's what I thought, okay, I'm gonna go with a meat analog, like I told you, a meat reducer, a semi-vegetarian diet. I'm flexitarian, so using less beef, and I put more seaweed that is good for us into the blend of this beautiful beef tartare that you see with the egg yolk emulsions, again, with a little touch of agar-agar in it. So, and that's the way I choose. Okay, I'm gonna use maybe this, and just to break down this seaweed phobia taboo that we have sometimes. Oh no, we don't want, it's, I really recommend to the chefs to take another approach and like use it as an implementer to more fibers and more nutrients and essential nutrients to your diet through a wonderful collaboration with the beef, for example. And it reminds me, in Italy, in Piedmont, we eat like this beef tartare with caviar, for example. And then I say, okay, I'm not going to use the caviar, I'm going to use the local seaweed. And it was a very successful touch, I say.
It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous dish, Chef. Thank you for
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But yeah, I really enjoyed to work with it. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I loved how you talked about how good it was for us to eat, and combine that with how good it is for the planet. And it's
well, yeah. If you think seaweed has the same proteins of beef, really, it really does, and then also has lots of more nutrients as an essential or micro and micronutrients, which is we should all be aware of that, and also because it's like a carbon retardant. So we actually helping the carbon emissions. It makes completely sense to add it to the beef. So you're getting actually a better steak, you're getting a better burger, you're getting a better beef tartare, and more healthy for you, for the environment. It's a win-win situation.
It is a win-win. The umami goes up and it's beautiful when you eat that. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you again.
I'm going to move on to Chef Patrick. And I know that, Patrick, you're going to show us one photo that you prepared earlier in the day, and then you're going to do a live tasting and a demonstration to it. So tell us about your creation and your innovation in the kitchen.
Yeah, for sure. So for starters, I want to just jump back to Danny for a second and make a point that I think it's also awesome that you'll see Brent's dishes, and we truly went 3 different directions. And the fact that we have coffee every morning at 9 a.m. and we talk about, the BC landscape as a whole. We all have our micro regions, but we talk about everything, and it's something that's become very enjoyable that we have these very unique differences, and we've learned to kind of coexist as well. I love Danny's approach with the flexitarian aspect, because my personal opinions, without going too deep into them, are that is one of the best ways to convince people to have an environmental impact and not have to completely change their diet, right? To utilize these ingredients like seaweed that can cut down on some beef consumption, but you still get the flavor, but you get the benefits of both, right? So
Absolutely.
well done, Danny. And so my first dish I did, which I think is just popping up here. So I actually, having said that, I did go a vegan direction for my first dish, and I went with a beet poke. So I had some sous vide beets that I use, and I used my alaria, going to Brent's point about it being tender after it's blanched and just kind of ready to eat at that point if you're comfortable doing so. So in the same way that you would chiffonade or julienne some green onions into a tuna poke or something, I did the same with the alaria. I just julienne it real fine, and by me I mean my spouse, who I'm grateful for, because I'm working left-handed here. So I did monitor her cutting all the vegetables for me, but I did a very classic poke with beet instead, marinated everything in a nice sesame and soy glaze that I made. As you can see, I topped it with some nice thinly sliced radish, a bit more of the sesame glaze on the plate there, and on top of some avocado. So a really nice, simple vegan appetizer that really does not take too much to make, but I think it ticks so many boxes as far as health, flavor, ease of execution. You can make the plate look good very simply. So that was my first take, yeah. And then my second one, and I'll just grab it here out of my freezer.
I agree with all you chefs. You all have done something different, which shows the versatility of seaweed.
Yeah. So my second one, and I'll hold it up here, I made ice cream. So fabulous. Again, working under limitation and trying to decide how I could utilize it. So again, to the beets, I use the alaria for that. I know that in coaching us, Christine, you mentioned that the alaria is a little bit more pronounced flavor. It does have its own profile. So I kind of tasted it first after I blanched it, decided how to use it that way. The sugar kelp you mentioned is a little more neutral, takes on the flavor of whatever you're working with a little easier. So I was kind of, lots of different directions I could have gone, but I haven't made ice cream in a while. So what I did is I made a matcha powder and sugar kelp ice cream. Fairly straightforward. I pretty much winged it as far as recipes. I've made enough ice cream over the years to kind of guess at quantities. And I think ultimately I wish I could share it to taste, but it turned out super well in the sense that if you're looking to incorporate any seaweed for a nutritional aspect, it just comes through enough that you get a little bit of that fresh flavor, but not so much that you're going to turn anyone off of it.
Right.
So I think that, to me, that would be the perfect balance to market to the masses of, hey, try this. It's not going to offend anyone or anything like that. It's, because it is one of those products that we're still trying to educate people on, and they're not 100% there yet, right? So
that's right. So it's a really great way to introduce it into their kitchens.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you really could incorporate multiple desserts. Just even if you roll with custards, you could do a creme brulee, you could do whatever. And then I made some black sesame snaps, because since I was a kid, I love sesame snaps, buying them at the store. So any excuse I have to make them, I will.
Sounds fabulous. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing.
No problem.
I want to remind our audience also, we're going to take questions at the end of the presentation. So put all of your questions in the chat and the chefs can answer them at the end. Let's move on to Chef Brent. And I know Brent is going to do a couple of his demos live today.
Yeah, it just, again, trying to, I was looking at Danny and talking with Danny and talking with Patrick and seeing what they were doing. And it was amazing, again, thinking how different we are, but yet we're all in one province. You know, we all have our little microclimates and different customer bases and things like that. So I sat there and I thought about this and I thought, well, how do I use this product that I can see here in the Okanagan or in our region? And in reality, could I turn around and make a seaweed salad and things like that? Yes, I could. Is it something that's going to be readily consumed here? I don't know. It's going to be a little tough. So I went on a different aspect where I took that seaweed and I kind of thought, okay, well, how can I add it to dishes to emphasize products that we were all used to seeing and products that we're very known for and things like that. So I kind of went on a different way. I took some BC albacore tuna and I actually, I made a bit of a dust. So some togarashi, I took some of the alaria and I dried it in an oven and got it super crispy and I just ground it up. So I made this small little dust. Again, it's got that spice from the togarashi, but it's got a real umami from the seaweed. Crusted my tuna, seared it off. I've sliced it. I'm actually going to put it onto a bed of floating leaf black lentils. So again, a black lentil, 100% Canadian product, grown in the provinces of Saskatchewan. It's a great item. So I thought, okay, how do I add seaweed to this? So you know what? Let's take the alaria and let's actually braise it with the lentil. So not only do you get that real earthiness from the lentil, but you get that little bite of that salt with the alaria, and it's not like you're getting big chunks of it because it's all ground in there. I took some broccolini and I torched it to get a little bit of bitter note into it. I made a salad out of it. I put it all together. I'm going to put a little bit of spice on it, so I just make a little chili oil. We'll drop a little chili oil around it. I put some pea shoots on top of it, and then my alaria that I've already dried, I just use that as a garnish. I'm going to put that up there. So quick and simple. It's something that I think would sell here in the Okanagan and that customers would love. It's not only nutritious, it's got a little bump of that protein from the seaweed. It's got a little bit more vitamins from the seaweed. It's got that umami, and it's not something that you would think, hey, what is that flavor? Like it's that little bit of a note that just adds a little depth to it, which is nice. And then
it looks wonderful. I love the garnish on there too.
For the second dish, again, I love the idea of it being plant-based. You know, it's a super hot trend right now. Everybody's jumping on that bandwagon, and we're trying to find new and innovative ways of using the product. So again, I'm going back to my little bit of a dust that I have because I like it. So I took some oyster mushrooms. I just tore them apart, put a little flour, some dredge with some seasoning, and I fried that off to make an oyster mushroom calamari. I put my dust on that, a little bit of lemon juice to kind of give it a bit of a zing. And then when it comes to a sauce, again, I'm thinking, okay, well, how do I introduce seaweed to it? So I took a traditional tartar sauce, but instead of adding green onion and things like that to kind of give it a little, I actually added the sugar kelp. So that sugar kelp gives me a little bit of texture, but it also gives me that little bump of that umami with it. And it kind of helps me out a little bit. I also, I did a smoked paprika one, again, where I took some of that sugar kelp and I actually dried it and again, crushed it up. Smoked paprika, sugar kelp, a little bit of mayonnaise, touch of cayenne and stuff like that. it made great sauces. It gives you that bump. It gives you that little flavor bomb, and it's something you just can't figure out what it is. But it's an excellent way of adding product and giving that oomph that you need without actually putting a lot of seaweed and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to give you a big seaweed salad, have at her. Like, this is something that a guy that maybe doesn't eat seaweed a lot but wants the nutritional aspects of it, easy way of biting into it. So again, I'm just going to hold this one up a little bit, see if you can see it.
Oh my God, I want some. I
Yes,
want some right now.
I love the fact that it's mushroom calamari.
Well done, chef.
So again, quick and simple. If I wanted to, I could garnish with a beautiful sugar kelp crisp that I love right across the top, and I'm done.
Perfect. Well done, everybody. I love all of your creativity. I love all of your innovation. You're a great team of chefs. While we're talking about innovation and while we're talking about future tastes, I want to ask each of you what trends you see coming along and what local taste you see coming along that might be starting to be featured on our menus. And I know our restaurants are limited right now, but we're going to get back to full-on service pretty soon, we hope. So tell me a little bit about where you see the future tastes in British Columbia. Daniele, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thank you. Very great question. Well, I'd say if I'm going back to what the seaweed has to offer to us so is a big source of micronutrients and micronutrients. So the applications are really, really huge for two main areas, I'd say. One is the functional food, and the other one is the nutraceutical industries. So that they're producing food, that those food companies, they're producing obviously some additives and that have some medicinal benefits to it, right? And it's a very lucrative industry, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I would hope. I mean, I'm sure that our friends at Cascadia's will interact with companies, plant-based companies, for example, local plant-based companies like a very good food company in Victoria, to maybe start a collaboration and come out, for example, with the perfect kelp spaghetti that we're all waiting for. And and again, is a result of a collaboration with a plant-based company, is a result of a collaboration with the innovation in the future that these Cascadia friends are building up, and they're here to stay, as I know that. So, for example, this beautiful kelp spaghetti, which looks like a spaghetti, except it is probably going to be almost translucent, but it has, like again, the chef Patrick says, those made it with the seaweed, like the sugar one, that they will have an incredible way to absorb whatever you make. So imagine using those innovative spaghetti that we will see from Cascadia, for example, hopefully in the future, made it with into a beautiful carbonara spaghetti. I wouldn't that be lovely? Oh, so yes. I say yes, and then again, a momentum to keep going with the fact that those functional foods, they're here to stay. Those people, and the people like us, the company like Cascadia will take, the opportunity to run with this and with the ability to say yes, all of those things that we say that they are alleviating disorders like obesity or diabetes, like we talked about it before. So I'm really looking forward to what Cascadia has to offer. I know there is some big, huge news in the pipelines. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say anything more. I don't wanna screw up the beautiful things that you guys gonna say in the future. But thank you again for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to come and see them live and collaborate with them in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you, Chef. I love how you're passionate and talking about the future of food. And you're right. Seaweed is not a trend nor a fad. It is here to stay.
Oh, and, yeah, for sure.
And chefs are
just at the beginning. It. See, it's like I said, my little girl is 8 years old. So she grew up with miso and seaweed and crackers and sushi. So, and those are the ones that, along with these nutrients, new visions and contact, like I didn't have when I was a kid, They also gonna carry on with the sustainability efforts and the fight for a better planet, right? So I think those are the 15, 20 years from now, we're gonna see huge change because of them.
I agree.
They're
I
gonna
agree.
change the future. Yeah.
That's true.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Chef. Chef Patrick, let's talk about where you see flavors and trends and innovation showing up on BC restaurant menus.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think going back to my earlier point that anytime there's any sort of, I know seaweed's not new, it's maybe just new-ish to Western culture. But right out of the box, it does have a pronounced flavor, of course. I think the key on restaurant menus is going to be incorporating in ways that maybe, I don't want to use the words trick, but I think it's important to advertise that it's in there, but to really show to consumers that, just like you don't have to eat a piece of fish raw out of the ocean, you can use it in so many different ways. It's the same with seaweed. So, I could really see in the short term being incorporated into diets, whether it's a flexitarian type menu, mostly for, I really think that, flavor is so subjective that everything for the history of time, there's people who like beef, there's people who don't, there's people who like mushrooms, there's people who don't. That's not really, I don't think that should be the goal. The goal should be that it's a sustainable product, which I found out recently that does have ocean-wise certification, which is very cool. And it's extra healthy for you. So how do we incorporate that? I could see a typical restaurant using it in a similar way to Brent. I could see a smoothie bar utilizing the kelp in the same way they've utilized spinach for years, adding it to smoothies, or how I did to ice cream and things like that. And I think it's really just going to come down to the education from chefs like us or anyone else who's had the pleasure of trying it to really promote the fact that it truly is super versatile. So you don't have to be stuck in this box of just eating seaweed. It can be used 1,000 different ways, and that's going to be the important part going forward is the education part of it. So
true. Absolutely. And I love the fact that we as chefs can steer that education and can steer those tastes into consumers.
Definitely.
So I want to turn to Chef Brent right now, and we have probably 2 or 3 more minutes because I know there's a lot of questions coming in. So Brent, can you briefly share with us your thoughts on innovations and tastes we might start to see in our BC restaurants?
Again, I like the idea of, obviously with the one dish being plant-based. Plant-based is huge. The flexitarian diets are huge. But the one thing I do look at that I think seaweed could probably help us the most, and the trend that I think it would help it the most with actually portion size and protein levels and stuff like that. So if we can knock back our intake of certain proteins by adding seaweed as a side or as an additive to boost our protein levels and boost our mineral intake or our vitamin intake, it's a win-win situation. Not only do we consume smaller amounts, but we're consuming better amounts for us. So I think it'll change the way we consume and the way we eat and the way we have lunch and dinner. And I think that's a huge trend that I think is coming around. I love the idea that it's sustainable. I love the idea that it's ocean-wise. There is so many things. I like the idea that it's created in BC. It's sold in BC. It's done by a BC company. It's important for all of us to support this. And logistics-wise, the less we have to travel, or if we do have to travel the proper ways for logistics, it just makes sense. There's lots of boxes that I believe it ticks. And again, Chef Patrick and Chef Danny talked so many good things already. Like there's not much I can add to it. And I don't want to take up too much time, but again, I like the idea of it being a booster of proteins for smaller portions for us.
I love all of your ideas. Thanks so much, chefs. We're going to get to some questions from the audience now, and all of the chefs can take turns answering them. But I also want to remind everybody, and we touched briefly on it, that Thursday at 1 o'clock on Seaweed Days Festival, there is a very big announcement from Cascadia about the future of food and seaweed. So everybody should tune in at 1 o'clock on Thursday. And now I'm going to turn it over to Linda, who's going to have some questions to the audience, and any of the chefs we can answer and give our feedback to the guests.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thank you, chefs. And I have to say that if I wasn't the host, I think I would have maybe left and gone and got something to eat, because everything I looked at, everything I heard, like I really need my dinner to be earlier tonight for sure. So everything was so beautiful and sounds so good. And thank you for mentioning the brand launch. So all the information for that is on the website, on the Seaweed Days website. So please do join us on Thursday. So one of the questions that's come in is this one: does the nutritional value of the seaweed change when it's fresh versus when it's dehydrated?
Very good question.
Sounds like a Danny question.
It's a very good question. Not really, actually, because if you dehydrate them properly, or if you freeze them properly, then you will lose very little, actually. So, and even, yes, and then obviously if you apply heat, when you apply heat to anything, you're gonna have depreciations of proteins, vitamins, carbohydrates, and minerals. Perhaps you lose some, but not all of them. So so the question is great questions, actually. Obviously with everything, the less heat, the less light you apply to ingredients, it will depreciate and it will kill its lifespan quite quickly. So, but I say no. I mean, that's it's also, there's this, there's 8 grams of proteins and I think 6 grams of carbohydrates in a hand, into this small amount of seaweed. So it's great concentrations of essential nutrients, I say.
Wonderful, thank you. How about this one? Is it something that you would recommend using for the everyday chef, seaweed?
I think eventually, for sure. I think that in the same way that we've seen so much other produce become so well used, you look at items like broccolini as an example, just on, I guess, and you go back 15 years and it seemed like this high-end vegetable. And, we've, through distribution channels and education, and, the internet has its negative components, but it also has a lot of positive for education purposes. So I think in that sense, there's no reason to be afraid of using it. Let's put it that way. That whether you're, anybody who does even the slightest bit from scratch could easily incorporate it into a dish. And as it becomes more and more trendy, it's something that it's probably a train that you want to jump on because it's good for PR as well.
So yeah, this is, I think, is another part of this taboo that we have of this seafood phobia, because as you can understand, until recently, this one was like almost like just an artisanal practice, or just like a coastal community limited use of this. But now it's changing. Like I said, my kid is 8 years old, but they're all eating seaweed like we never did before, right? And I think those things are here and this to stay and to change quite drastically, quite quickly. And also, like Chef Brent says, exactly. It depends where you are. If you're in a metropolis area like Chef Patrick is, then you can see that, you can be a very daily use in one of your, intake, whether it's a snack or is a breakfast item or is the lunch or is a dinner item. You already ate your intake of vitamin B12 with a little nourish sheets. It's so yeah. But in an area like in North Island, even if you're in the island on Campbell River or Port Hardy, I don't know if very many people are eating seaweed like we all should.
I agree. I want to jump in too, because I really have found in the last few months of doing some product development with Alaria and sugar kelp that it matches to almost every flavor you give it. It matches to almost every day part. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. It matches to savory. It matches to sweet. truly an amazing product that makes the life of chefs and product developers more exciting, because it's endless what we can create with it.
That actually ties into this, that's a good tie into this question, which is seaweed similar to any other product that you've used before? Or is it like completely different than anything you've ever cooked with before?
I'll jump in. Or you, Brent, you go.
No, I look at the idea of garlic. So because seaweed in one state can have maybe a little bit stronger flavors, and then as you put it into a different state, it'll become milder, or you can dry it and it becomes a little bit more umami. It's much like garlic. You know, garlic doesn't have to be used in one state all the time. So understanding the product and having fun with it, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everybody just used garlic as it is. That was it. Then black garlic, and then there's roasted garlic, and confit, and like there's so many different people taking levels of that flavor and bringing it to the different heights. Who would have thought garlic main or garlic ice cream would ever happen, right? Who would ever thought that alaria or sugar kelp ice cream would happen today? Like, that's the whole fun of these products, is it's all about the chefs and their brain and how much fun they want to put into it. That's where I like it. It goes into so many different things and you can use it so many different ways. It's all about your imagination. It's not about this little cookie cutter box.
Wonderful. Okay, that's a
I will also say maybe caviar or fish roe perhaps will remind me of seaweed. That's why I use the seaweed on a beef tartare instead with the caviar. A very less inexpensive and just as good as the nutritional factors as caviar maybe.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, here's one. What responsibility do you hold in your career in regards to opportunities for women chefs in the industry and sustainability moving forward, especially in the next 10 years?
I'm going to speak to the women chefs in the industry. I think that the chef community, both across Canada and North America and around the world, is a very tight-knit community. We really do share ideas. We really do spend time cooking and talking and tasting together. And we really do keep in touch with each other. And the support network is always there. I've been a chef for over 35 years, and I can't imagine doing anything else. It makes my heart sing every day. And to get to work with chefs like these three Sysco chefs and all of my other chef community just is the best career I could ever think of. But there's a huge opportunity to share your passion for food and not just be an executive chef. You can be a product developer, you can be a food writer, you can be a food blogger, you can do all these different things and still be in the culinary community.
Okay.
I'll just jump in and make a quick point there that having run several kitchens and obviously been a part of many for the last 20 years, that, I genuinely hope that everyone feels they have the same chance to get somewhere. But I've worked with easily more talented female cooks and chefs than a lot of my male counterparts. And to that point, they are just as strong in the kitchen and way more organized for the most part. So a lot of teams I've run, I've been more than happy to incorporate that element into them as much as I can, because it definitely helps your kitchen run smoother. So.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay, we have time for one more question. This is our final question. Are there any seaweed cooking books that any of you would recommend?
That's a good question.
Did any of you refer to any books, or you just started cooking and coming up with creative things in the kitchen?
I'm a total social media and YouTube kind of guy. Like, I grew up with a lot of cookbooks, and I still have a lot of cookbooks. I probably have, well, my wife will tell me, way too many of them. And I've found over the years that I look less at books and more to the internet. So, that's a tough one to answer, because I think instant information of of the internet is phenomenal nowadays. Like growing up as a young chef, when I was 22, 23, and I needed to find something out, I had to go to the library, or I had to steal it from another chef, or something. Like now I just go up to my office and punch it in the computer, and I get lots of different information. So I would probably have to say that I would go to the internet more than I would go to a cookbook.
I would agree with that. I have my standards, and my laptop in front of me is sitting on 3 of them, and 2 of them are written by Thomas Keller. But as the world's evolved, to the point of today, I just kind of jumped in and went with kind of the knowledge we had from Christine and tried to do what I could and see how it turned out. But I think seaweed's probably something that is and going to be affordable enough that you don't need to worry about buying this $40 steak or this $50 piece of sea bass that you're really concerned about screwing up. I think it is a product that it's so sustainable and affordable that just have some fun with it. Try throwing it into a dish, see what happens. Blanch it, taste it, see what you like about it, and then use it where you cook. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Before we go, Christine, would you have any final words or anything that you'd like to say before we close off today?
I want to thank these 3 fabulous chefs from Sysco for sharing their time and sharing their passion for food and sharing their taste with us, because we know it's all about taste, taste, taste. And I hope everybody signs on every night this week around 5 o'clock for the wonderful culinary demonstrations from chefs from coast to coast, from the East Coast to the West Coast, sharing their ideas in the kitchen as well.
Thank you very
so
much. And I'd like to thank you as well, chefs and Christine. And I think we're all going to go cook now. We're getting close to dinner time. I think it's time. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank
take
you
good
very
care.
much, Christine. Thank you,
Cheers.
Linda.
Thank you, everybody.